Live from the 4 Aces Studios, 4 Aces Presents brings to you West Coast Bias.
Good afternoon, folks. It's that time again. It's Sunday afternoon, and it's time for your favorite Sunday afternoon sports internet radio show, and that is West Coast Bias. I'm here as usual with Mr. Suave and Miss O'Malley. How y'all doing?
What's up?
And it's time.
You know what? I have to comment. It still is very strange not hearing the intro.
Yeah.
It's weird because it's sitting here like, did I get disconnected? Am I still on the line? It's just like this big, huge, giant pause where we're used to hearing the our cool
intro.
little intro. So it's just. I'm still adjusting to that.
Well, we only 4 episodes deep on here on Spreaker, so it takes a little bit to get used to.
Someone need to figure that shit out.
Make it so that people can hear, damn it. No,
right?
But we were talking, we might as well pick up right where we were talking when we were off air there about, just the fact that effectively the Dubs dominated the 3-point contest this weekend, and what else did you expect, really? Like, anybody who didn't have Clay or Steph winning the thing pretty much has zero clue what they're talking about in reality. Like,
because they're not called the Splash Brothers for nothing.
Exactly. Oh man, now, I didn't get a chance to really see it. So was there any amount of drama to it? Or did Clay and Steph just kind of run away with it, and Clay just happened to best Steph? Like,
it was really just between Clay and Steph, to be quite honest. Clay pretty much led from start to finish, except for the final round between him and Curry, where Curry had to lead and Clay had to come from behind and hit, a last couple of money balls on his last rack. But, it was exciting. I haven't been that excited at a 3-point contest since the year before when Steph pretty much blew everybody away.
Yeah.
Right. But, this time you knew that it was going to be one of us who won.
Right.
Going into it, honestly, even before anybody started, I don't really think that there was a question that, if you had asked people, they probably would have said Steph.
Yeah.
But, I honestly, I think that it was one of the best that I've seen in a while, at least. Especially with the whole come from behind. That was pretty awesome. I saw Clay interviewed afterwards, and he said, man, he said after those first couple ones, I thought he had it. So, it's pretty awesome. I'm going to save what I really have to say about that for my opinion piece. So stop taking my shit away from me. God, y'all always do that, okay? We talk about shit, and that was what I was going to talk about. And then, man, sometimes you put Suave on in front of me, and he takes what I was going to talk about. So shut up. No, I'm just messing.
You might as well call me Oklahoma City, because I hate the
Steve, no. Okay, now let's get to talking some basketball. There's some in the.
I thought we were already talking some basketball.
We are, but we're gonna dig into this to where these teams are at the All-Star break, and really looking at this season.
Man, I gotta give you shit.
Yeah. Well, I say the first question that's always asked is are the Dubs gonna make the playoffs? Well, that question's gonna be answered. They pretty much can clinch the playoff berth already. Um, let's see.
Right.
The second
I mean,
question, comes down to are they gonna break the Bulls record? Well, yeah,
yes.
it looks like they're most likely gonna do that. Um, here's the question that really matters to me. Their biggest threat has jumped around a lot, based on some media pundits' opinions. And now it sits on the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I thought that we put that to rest with that win that they had in Oakland. But there are still some out there that honestly think that the Thunder have what it takes to take down the Warriors in a
It's gonna
7-game
take.
series.
It's gonna take beating them where in their house.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you know what? I can say that, but every time I think that this is what it's going to take to shut people up, it's not. It's never enough.
Heather?
I'll explain to what Heather was saying. So there's only one challenge left for the Warriors, and that's beating the top teams, basically the Spurs and the Thunder, who are really, I mean, I hate to be one of those fans or pundits that says no one else has a chance. Well, let's be honest. If the playoffs started right now, it'd be Warriors versus Jazz. Does anybody here ever in the world think the Jazz have a shot outside of Utah? No. Hell, half of Utah Jazz fandom doesn't believe that the Jazz have a chance. They feel happy to win a game. So,
Yeah.
I mean, really what it comes down to is the Warriors have big games in Oklahoma City and in San Antonio, and those are the biggest games of the year for the Warriors and for the Spurs and the Thunder in the terms of, the Warriors need to know that they can beat those teams on their court.
Right.
They already know they're pretty much, undefeatable at home for the most part, unless the game gets super tight down late, in which case, KD and Westbrook can take over for the Thunder and possibly pull a game out, or the Spurs can execute late. So the Warriors kind of have that edge going in. But on their opponent's floor, they've already done that to the Cavs, who everybody figures is going to make another run to the finals. So the Warriors already have that mental edge. They need that mental edge on the Spurs and the Thunder, because the Warriors a couple years ago almost stunned the Spurs in San Antonio by taking the series from them. And, they had a 16-point lead with so many minutes to go and ended up coughing it up. And that's when the Spurs were able to show their championship pedigree and their heart, and as well show the youth and the shortcomings of the Warriors in that particular instance. So the Warriors have grown greatly from that time. But the home games against the Spurs and Thunder need to know as teams and franchises that if the Warriors come to their court, they're not going to win.
Yep.
So really, those are the pivotal games of the season moving forward, as well as the Spurs need to get the foul taste out of their mouth from last year from getting bounced by the Clippers, who got shellacked by a Houston team that they had a 3-1 lead against. So I know the Spurs are still butthurt over what happened last year. They want to show that this last stand that they're going through is worthy of making a title run. So there's some big questions going forward for the Warriors. Even if they go on to lose those games, as long as they don't lose at home versus those teams, to give those teams that mental edge that they can go into the playoffs and take one game, which is what every team will be looking to do against Golden State, is take one game in Golden State, whether it be the first two or one of the last two, to extend the series to a full 7-game series. So or have a chance to defend the home court and win the series outright. So those are pretty much the biggest blocks right now for the Warriors and the Spurs and Thunder, is proving to each other and getting that mental, cap. And there's some fans out there who say it doesn't matter, if the Warriors go ahead and break the all-time record and then they beat the Spurs and Thunder at home, it still doesn't matter because it's not the playoffs.
Yeah.
But the mental aspect is huge in my opinion.
Hold on 1 second. I'll let you complete your thought, but I gotta call in O'Malley. Hold on 1 second.
Well, I've been there, disconnected, had, issues on the phone and been disconnected. I remember O'Malley was ripping me last time about being disconnected, so I'm just going to go ahead and give her a little ripping about not having a good service connection for this episode today. And I just want O'Malley to remember that it's not just me that has the technical difficulties, so that way when she actually gets back on the line.
Shut up. It's not me. You know what? Steven or Suave, let's do this. I think that it's Double K's fault. We'll just blame him.
Sure, I'll own that. I'm the guy.
I can roll with that. I can roll
I'm
with
the guy
that
in the driver's seat. So. Oh man! But all right, so Suave, go ahead and finish up what you were saying, and then O'Malley, you can go ahead and finish up what you were saying.
Yeah, the mental aspect of these home games for the Spurs and the Thunder are fairly titanic in my view. Lots of fans will say that it won't matter because it's only the regular season. But in my opinion, winning on your opponent's home court, even in the regular season, and, the Warriors are defending champs, so they've got a bit of an edge. But at the same time, those two teams, the Spurs and Thunder, have to know that they can win on their home court. It's almost pivotal because if they go into the playoffs not having even defended their home court, especially say the Spurs, Thunder are 25-5 at home, but the Spurs are 28-0. So if the Warriors are able to give them a 1 on their undefeated at home mark, that would be monstrous in my opinion. And although it might not hold a ton of weight, it's that little bit of edge that gives the team a push when they need it, to let them know whether they get down or whether they're up big, that the team they're facing can either come back and win or they can hold them off and beat them.
For sure. O'Malley?
I'm not sure where we left off. Or are we still on the same subject of Oklahoma City and things of that nature?
We're still on the same subject of Dub's biggest threat. Who is the actual biggest threat that the Dubs can that can actually have a chance at potentially knocking off the Dubs in the 7-game series. So
no one.
There you go. I'll roll with that. Well, no, it's true. I
mean, at this point, that's honestly really, I think what the case is. I haven't seen a team yet that, especially if you look at the way we're rolling right now, okay, if we go with this pace, one, not only are we going to beat the Bulls record, we're already, past the pace to do that. But not only that, but look at where, does anybody not even see us clinching home court advantage through the whole damn thing? Because, look at where we're at now. Yeah. And honestly, right now, knock on wood, we've got this huge undefeated streak at home, and anybody coming into Oakland and into Oracle to play us should be very afraid. Mm-hmm. They should definitely be shitting their pants. Because one, that arena gets wild. But two, if I were another team going into Oracle and knowing, one, what the crowd environment is, but two, just the pure record of, what their record at home. Even if, huge if, even if, we're not able to hold up the undefeated at home and, all the way up to the finals, it's still, granted, if you look at it, a couple of the only games that we lost last season at home were in the playoffs and the finals. We went into the playoffs only having lost 2 games at home, right? Yeah. Something like that. And then we lost a couple throughout the playoffs and the finals. But I'd be, I'm sorry what anybody says, but home court has, there is an advantage, especially when you're certain teams, there is an advantage to being able to play at home. I mean, look at football. There's an advantage for Seattle to be able to play in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
With their the whole 12-man thing isn't just hype. If you've ever been there and heard how freaking loud, and part of it is the design of that stadium.
Mm-hmm.
It was designed to be that way. So, and they don't call it Roracle for nothing.
It does get.
Because, there were people last season talking about, you go into here and it's got the loudest. And you have coaches from those teams who were like, man, we didn't give them credit for how loud it gets. We thought it got loud in our arena.
Yeah.
No. Because, not just that, but the Dubs have some amazing freaking fans. Obviously, look at us. But, seriously, we have fans. Granted, I'm sure that there are fans who jumped on the bandwagon since all of this. It happens when a team starts winning.
Yeah.
But you've got fans of this team who have been fans since, the ages of $10 tickets. And,
Tim Hardaway and Chris Mullin.
Yes. I remember that because I was in high school playing basketball when they were making their run and they were doing their thing. And yeah, I had me a pair of Hardaways. Ain't gonna lie.
Yeah.
But it just, now we're talking about Run TNT.
Well, I can say this.
But
no, I went back and I did some research on the run Miami Heat. Heck no. The one the Miami Heat had during their time when they did the 4 final runs, and did their thing. And you know what? They never even had a season as good as the Dubs had last year with the Big Three. Even at their peak, they only won 66 games in the weak Eastern Conference, where basically they were the best team on the board. The most games that team won. It just blew my mind because I figured at some point that team had to have come close to, or was thought to be able to come close to the Bulls record. But no, they never even done. No.
Where you been at?
No, it just kills me how people don't recognize. Well, I'll say it like this. People who don't matter don't recognize the historic value of this team. People like Greg Popovich, I don't know if you guys had a chance to read that article. Kind of tagged in.
Yeah.
But he definitely respects and understands what he's seeing before his very eyes. That this is something special.
Well, and those are opinions that matter. Mm-hmm. To me, those are opinions that matter because, he's the man. And I have a lot of respect for him. So when he comes out and says what he said, because I read the article, didn't you post an article about it?
Yes, I did.
Or you either posted an article or you posted a status about it. But I remember reading it because, or somebody did, because then we started talking about Charles Barkley and how he needs to just shut the fuck up.
Yes.
Because I'm sorry, but his opinion doesn't freaking matter. It doesn't.
It's irrelevant.
Okay, how many rings has he got?
Oh man.
He ain't got a ring, and he keeps talking about teams with playing this style of basketball. Oh, this style of basketball, this style of basketball, that. Oh, they're not going to be able to win doing this. Oh, they're not going to be able to win doing that. Dude, you're living in the dark freaking ages. Basketball has evolved.
Well, let me say this.
Just like it's evolved since a gajillion years ago when Nesmith freaking created it. It's not the same.
Well, okay.
God, it's not the same. Thank God that at least the fashion has changed, too. They're not wearing them freaking nut shorts anymore.
Well, I can't. Well, I say it like this about Barkley. He doesn't have a right to have his opinion be taken as law or as a good word. He has a right to have an opinion. Hell, all we really spout is our opinions. You know what I'm saying? We love our team and we spout our opinions, but Barkley has a right to spout his opinion. But it's I like the fact that he does what he does, because you know what? These Warriors players cannot sit here and tell me that they don't hear that, and it doesn't fuel them. It doesn't fuel them to get even
Oh
better.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Oh,
and so please, Charles Barkley,
absolutely.
please keep feeding them fuel, because I want this
Yeah.
Dubs team to go on a 3, 4, or 5 championship run. And then when you shut up, unfortunately, they'll fall off because the fuel will be gone. But please keep fueling them onto a three-peat. Keep fueling them on to being one of the best teams ever in the entire NBA history, just to shut you up. But don't shut up. Keep talking, so that way they can continue to be the best team in basketball. Because as long as he's talking, they're playing well. Barkley, talk on.
Yeah.
Your
Well,
opinion don't
and you
matter
know,
to me.
the other thing that I thought was funny too was because I was listening to Stephen A. Smith, and I should really save this for my opinion piece because it has to do with 3-point competition. And like he was talking about Clay and Curry like he had never talked the amount of shit about them that he had. Like he was in awe. Somebody finally shut him up. So, I mean, at least, there was some credit coming out of that. And it's like, don't give it. Yeah, it feels, there is nothing like, and we talked about this last week, there is nothing like being an underdog and having people tell you you can't do something to be able to fuel you into doing it. So, I mean, yeah, keep up the hate. Shit, I didn't like when they started giving the Raiders credit. Shut up. Go back to talking shit. You're going to ruin what we got going on. So, yeah, I get that.
Yep.
As far as I'm concerned, and you know what, as far as I'm concerned with the amount of crap is everybody's talked, I don't care. Other than fans and other than maybe, some people sitting back going, man, we were wrong. Don't be jumping on the train now. I mean, you already done talk shit. You already done did that. So don't be jumping on the train now. You don't get that. You don't have that opportunity. That train missed you. We don't need you. We don't need people who were talking hella shit and then all of a sudden it's does this, does that. F you. We don't need you. Keep talking your shit. Because I'm going to remember. I got a long memory, at least as far as, things like that go. Now, half the time, law school and shit, I can't barely remember my own damn name. But, I mean, people talking shit and people, saying can't this and can't that. That shit I remember because that's the same shit that drives me in my life.
Yep.
I mean, there is nothing that will guarantee that I am going to do something like somebody telling me I can't.
100%.
Because then I'm just going to say, sit there, get some popcorn, sit back and fucking watch me. So.
All right. So, okay. Now that we've looked at and talked about the talking heads about the Dubs, let's take a hard look at this schedule coming up. Pretty much the Dubs are the favorites to win just about every one of their games moving forward, with an exception for the two games in San Antonio. Because I believe we haven't won a game outside of the playoffs in San Antonio in something like 10 or 15 seasons, somewhere around there, since like 2001, 2003, somewhere around there.
Okay,
so,
well, you know what? If there's games to be won in San Antonio, I'd go with playoff games over anything.
Very true. Very true.
I mean, seriously.
They do have 2 more games as well against the Thunder. Congratulations to all 3 teams. I will say this before we dig into the schedule. Congratulations to all 3 teams on making NBA history and being the first time that 3 teams were over 40 wins by the All-Star break in NBA history. I guess this is the first time they've ever had 2 teams over 45 wins with the Spurs and Dubs in the history of the NBA. So glad to see the Dubs are a part of it. Glad to see the history's being made, but because this season is video game ridiculous just in general. But 5 games. So let's say the Dubs lose every away game against the top team. That's 3 games. They got 2 more games, one each against the Spurs and the Thunder at home. Then they have the 3 games on the road against the Spurs and the Thunder. So let's say they lose those 3 games. Are we really looking at a team that could literally finish, like, what would that be? They're 48
We're
and
not
4
we're not
now.
friends. We're not friends anymore. I
Why?
mean, you're sitting there talking about you're sitting there talking about us winning, they're losing the rest of those games. I know it's just a hypothetical, so I'm
It's
giving
just
you shit.
I'm
But
just saying, just
I
worst
know,
case
I know,
scenario.
I
Worst
know,
case
I
scenario, we
know.
come out of the season with 7 losses. We finish 75-7. Like are we really that good that we're going to run, that we're not going to have a hiccup and run into
Right? No,
6-7 more
no.
losses
And I
before the
get that.
season's done?
I get that, but I mean, honestly, like we were talking about, and and the confidence it gives you to be able to go in, especially when it's a team that they tell you can't do it or it hasn't been done in this long. But to go in and beat a team on their own,
Yeah.
at their own home,
Now it's
especially
like
if
when we
it's
get
a
to
team that is very possible, is a high possibility that you could, end up meeting them sometime during the playoffs. You want the confidence going into that, knowing, shit, we beat them at home. We beat them in their house. We can do it again.
yeah.
Now, granted, I mean, they could still go into the playoffs and play one of those teams and lose every game in the playoffs that they play away. But as long as they have home court advantage and win every game that they've got, that they're playing in Oakland, they'll still beat the team. That's another one of those what ifs that you don't want to see happen.
Yeah.
But, obviously, I'm not naive to think that we're just going to go in and, from here on out, we're going to go undefeated.
Yeah.
I think that there will be another point in time where the players get rested again. And we kind of see what happened last time that really happened. Look at the catastrophe in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, honestly, I can still deal with, they're obviously not going to sit them against a team that it's important that they beat them at home. They're obviously not going to do that. But I can see them between now and the playoffs, the starters are going to get sat again. And that's smart. That is playing smart basketball. So all of these mother effers who are sitting there saying, well, if so-and-so hadn't been hurt or if so-and-so didn't do this, well, blame your freaking coaching and blame your ownership and blame your management that they weren't smart enough to, one, sit the starters when they had the opportunity. So that, because the most injuries and the worst injuries happen when these players start getting fatigued.
Yep.
Okay? And the Warriors, and I know that they're not the only team using the technology, and I've talked about this before. They use special technology and the special cameras that the NBA uses for everything, where they can see, like, hundredths of a second, just like these minuscule movements that to the normal eye wouldn't necessarily seem like anything, but their trainers and their doctors and their all of them, and they wear these bracelets during practice, that where they can then look at the data and tell when these players are starting to get fatigued, and that's when they get sat, because that's when injuries happen. And so I'm sorry if LeBron fucked your team and you lost your entire bench. Therefore, you played with hurt players.
Yeah.
But we shut y'all up because we beat you in Oakland, and then we beat you in Cleveland with an entirely healthy team. So people can shut up on that. But, so if you're going into the playoffs and going into the finals and you've got hurt players talking about, like, oh, well, if so-and-so wasn't hurt, or, the big thing last season was, well, if Westbrook and what's-his-face hadn't been hurt on friggin' Oklahoma City, Oklahoma they would have taken the whole thing. Well, there's a lot of what ifs. What if I won the lottery? None of y'all would ever hear from me again. Okay, I mean, that's not true. I take care of my friends, but I mean, I'm just talking about like these crazy like what ifs. But,
yeah, the conspiracy theories.
I see the key players getting rested, at least once, maybe for several games, because last season they sat him for a whole week.
Yep.
And I remember it was a big to-do because Clay's entire family did come to see him play that week. And that was the week that they all got benched. You know? And it's like, people hear it, oh, they got benched. Well, okay, this isn't high school and this isn't college. You know, they're not getting benched because they got in trouble. So it's like when you hear a player, player got benched, you know, you automatically start thinking bad things. But when we say that these players got benched, it's because they basically got sat out for the week. And it was so that they could rest, so that they didn't end up getting these injuries. I mean, just think of what would have happened with those two freaking massive spills that Clay and Steph took during the playoffs and such. Think if they hadn't had the rest, those injuries could have, those incidents could have ended up a lot worse than what they were.
Yep.
But I think because they were healthy and they were rested, that, they were able to come out of those. Because, I mean, who didn't gasp and, hold their heart when Curry landed on his neck? Seriously, they showed his white space. And it was like, I couldn't imagine seeing that happen to my husband, because he went up and over. It's not like he just fell. He literally went up and over. And didn't have the time to, brace himself. And that could have ended up, I thought he was done.
Well,
seriously.
At least for the playoffs.
If you even see, and then everything that happened with Clay, when Clay's ears started bleeding, it just, so I see, and those are games, I got off on a tangent there, but what I'm trying to say is those are games that, we could possibly end up losing. If we end up having the catastrophe that we had during, at Dallas, although I think we learned from that. And there, I think, was some other stuff going on there other than just, our starters were benched.
Yeah.
But, so I see that happening. So, it's a possibility that they could end up getting benched or they could end up losing those games. It would be, would I love to see them go undefeated from here on out?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. No Dubs fan will tell you any different. However, if I had my choice of, if going undefeated for the rest of the season meant that something catastrophic was going to happen in the playoffs or the finals, I'm going to sit here and tell you, lose every game that you need to, so long as, you win when it's important. Because, people keep talking. You can't not talk about, the whole Bulls record right now. That's on the minds of everybody. Especially, it came up a lot over this weekend. So you can't not think about that, but when it comes down to it, what would you rather, a record or a championship?
The chip every time.
Right.
That's no joke.
So
all right. Well, Suave, any last thoughts before we kick off into these opinion pieces?
I think that the Warriors have the record in the bag. I think that they've gone, let's see, take a quick peek here, 48-4, which basically means for every 12 games they win, they lose a game. So if you're going by averages, they have to go 25-5 to break the record.
Yep.
Well, if they're 12-1 right now and averaging 12-1 ratio wins between losses, honestly, it looks like they may only lose 2 or 3 more games the rest of the season, which would put them at 75-7. And basically, it would only be 3 games better than the Bulls, but at the same time, it would be the only team to have ever lost single digits in a season, which doesn't sound huge, but when you start thinking about all-time records, and the Bulls got to 72-10, they got double-digit losses. If the Warriors can get to 73-9 or 75-7, that's a dismantling of the record. They will own that record. That record might not ever be broken. I mean, it's almost to the
unless
point where
it's by them.
Yeah,
Next year.
It's to the point where there could be honest talk next year. Let's just say hypothetically they get to 75-7. Well, damn. They had one game this year that was a loss because Steph sat out. They had another one because Draymond sat out. So, half of the losses right now are due to injury. They were able to continue to win when they missed 3 weeks of Harrison Barnes or near 4 weeks of Harrison Barnes and some ticky-tack things here and there. So at full strength, they've only lost 2 games. So there's a chance next year going into it with several losses. Could they become the first team to ever go undefeated in the season, 41 at home and 41 on the road? I mean, but it's like O'Malley said, it doesn't matter what you do if you can't pull off those 16 wins at the end of the season in the playoffs. It's all about those 16. So I think that the record's in the bag, and the only thing up in the air is who they face in the Western Conference Finals, and can they continue to challenge themselves going into it, because it seems like out of the losses they've had this year, and they have only been few, but in those losses were just the couple of games where it seemed like the Warriors played down to their level of competition, and you can throw it off as, having an off night shooting, or our shots weren't falling, the other team's shots were falling. But to me, it seemed more so just a little lack of focus in just those couple of games. And it's also when you're really thinking about it, well, hell, that was only 2 games, Steve. And yeah, I totally understand that. Only 2 games all season out of 52 games have they allowed their focus to kind of, dwindle down to the level of their competition. They get up for the big games and they kind of stay, so and go through the motions against everyone else. So if they can, continue that focus, I mean, the record seems like it's in the bag, 25-5 they need. Honestly, it looks like they could go, according to how they've gone so far, they could go, 26-2 in the season, 76-6, which is astronomical, So, and when you think about it, who can beat this team? You figure nobody in the East is going to beat the Warriors. They've already dealt with the Cavs. I don't believe that they come again the rest of the season. So it's really nobody left in the East can beat the Warriors unless we catch an injury. Knock on wood. I want to make sure y'all heard that. And then in the West, you're talking about, going to San Antonio and the Thunder. So, I think they've got 3 or 4 matchups between those 2 teams. Well, they're beating just about everybody else. And maybe I'll give a little nod to the Clippers. I think we've got 1 left against them because they've actually been playing halfway decent basketball since Blake Griffin, got suspended and was hurt and all that other craziness. So besides those 3 teams, you put it up, you just count all those as losses. That's 5 losses. They beat everybody else. That's still going to be, the 25-5, like everybody predicts, they need to break the record. But I expect them to win a couple of those games. So, I mean, the record's in the bag. It's all about can they remain healthy and win those 16 games to finish it off. And I want to touch one last thing off about the motivation. O'Malley was talking about Barkley, and go ahead and keep talking. And I'm in total agreement. It started in the offseason. Everything that's happening and everything that's transpired for our team as a whole all started in the offseason. You got Kyrie open his mouth. Oh, we would have won had I been able to play. Then you got Charles Barkley, doing his thing. And you got all these pundits and everybody coming up. And now you got people throughout the season when the Warriors were on to, starting to have the best, beginning to a season in NBA history. You have people like Rodman. Oh, well, if they break the record, we did it first, so it doesn't matter. We're still the best. And then you got Tony Kukoc. Oh, well, they couldn't have beat our team. And hell, now recently you just had Magic Johnson. Oh, well, we'd have crushed them. We'd have crushed them. So all these things have been motivating. Instead of just to start the season, the "we're sorry, we were healthy," mantra that he's said at the beginning of the year. So I appreciate all the negativity because it has propelled my home team, my favorite team, to be the best in basketball currently, and with a chance, and it's pushed them so much that they have a chance to be the best team in history. So like O'Malley said, please keep bringing the bullshit. Keep bringing the nonsense. Keep saying they can't do this. Keep saying they can't do that. Keep calling Steph Curry only a shooter. Keep saying Clay's not the best two-way guard in the game. Keep saying Draymond Green isn't a superstar. Keep saying Harrison Barnes is a fourth wheel. Keep saying it all, because when the Warriors go back-to-back, I'm just going to walk around butt naked and put it on YouTube and tell everybody, including Magic Johnson, Charles Barkley, Tony Kukoc, Dennis Rodman, that they can all kiss my ass, and I'm going to put it on a close-up with the postcard.
There you go. All right, guys. We'll pause on that note. Come back and y'all can hit us with those opinion pieces before we dig off into some more basketball talk right here on West Coast Bias. Guys, can't get no better. West Coast Bias, Spreaker.com, 4Aces presents.
Yo, what's up? It's your boy Cole from Planet of Cole and the Raw Impact Unleashed for 4Aces Presents. Now, I'm going to do a little rundown for the weekly shows we got coming up. Monday, we got Now vs. Then from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. That's Pacific Standard Time. All of these are Pacific Standard Time. Tuesday, iRock Radio from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Also Tuesday, The Sidebar, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Wednesday, Hip Talk Radio from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Also on Wednesday, we got Now vs. Then West from 9 p.m. to 12 a.m. Getting a little late for y'all peeps on the East Coast. Now Thursday, we got the Raw Impact Unleashed with yours truly and Kevin Kendrick, Double K. That's from 8 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. So y'all check out our weekly shows and holla at your boy. Take it easy.
All right, O'Malley, it's your time to shine. Hit him up with the rise of O'Malley.
All right. Well, I mean, to keep it on the basketball note here, and what I said was I was going to be talking about this 3-point competition. First of all, this is the first time in history that, not the first time in history that a player from the same team has won back-to-back, but a first time in history where two players, separate players from the same team, have won back-to-back. This year, it was Klay Thompson, the other half of the Splash Brothers combination, the one that probably, in comparison to Curry, just maybe doesn't get as much props as he should. But man, this was probably one of the deepest 3-point competitions that there was in recent history, if not ever. I mean, it was deep and it was exciting. To see them, it was amazing. Watching them and to see Curry's reaction when Klay won. Like, he was jumping up and down on the sidelines like, dude, he didn't just beat him. And I think that that's pretty amazing. I think that is very indicative of the two of them and the team as a whole. I mean, and definitely Steph Curry, because he is just as happy when his teammates make milestones as he is. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a team sport. So you should care about your teammates and what they do. And granted, I know that the 3-point competition, that's a player's thing. That's because that's extra. It's not like it's in furtherance of the season. It's not like it's, anything that, because people talk about, the MVP award and, how, well, these players wouldn't necessarily have gotten that if they hadn't had the team that they had behind them or this and that. So, I mean, even with an MVP award, you can say that the team still had something to do with that. But here, I mean, just like the home run derby in baseball and things of that nature, it was it was fun to watch. And just, I love watching the two of them, period. Just because, I mean, they honestly look like they're two kids out there having the time of their lives. And, articles have come out and people have talked about the way that the last round really went is it looked like they were honestly just doing something that they would have been doing at the end of practice. And people have been talking about now, I know they're making the joke that next season, well, they're going to have to start them in the parking lot. Just because, I mean, right now, these two kids just seem to be in that, as far as that goes, they're untouchable. And, it's fun watching other teams, and I don't just say this because I'm a Dubs fan, but if you are a basketball fan, I don't care who your team is. You can't tell me that you can't sit there and watch a Dubs game and not say, I mean, I sit back every time I watch them play and think that it literally is like watching poetry in motion. They play beautiful basketball. And this 3-point competition was, I mean, it was no different. And I mean, it did come down to just them against them. Like, it almost did seem like it's a competition of, well, what they might do at the end of practice. Let's have some fun and let's, see who's got this. And so, and Curry was so gracious about the whole thing. And he was joking afterwards that, maybe this might be his last one thanks to Clay. But, I mean, he was joking because you could go and watch the video, go and watch when Clay hit his final shot, go and watch all of that, and then watch Curry's reaction. Because to me, that was priceless. And that said more about him and the two of them and their Dubs team as a whole than I think anything else. Because in a day and age where a lot of players are so selfish, I mean, come on, we've heard about it. We've heard about the players that nobody, they come out afterwards and people don't like playing with them because, they're selfish and this and that, and it's all about them. And, this team isn't like that. And it's really fun to watch. And to see them just sit there and continue to grow with as great as they were last season, to sit there and see them continue to grow is even that much more amazing. Because, I mean, honestly, who thought that they could get any better? Well, they obviously can, and they continue to do so. So, it was a fun thing to watch. And it wasn't just fun because, hey, two of the players that I love the most in the game right now. One of the players that probably is one of my all-time favorite players ever. Not just that. It just was beautiful. And it was fun to watch. And, I'm excited to see what the rest of the season is going to bring and what they end up doing next season. But that's just my opinion.
Yo, what's up? It's your boy Cole from the Raw Impact Unleashed at Planet of Cole. Just throwing out there the lineup for the weekend for 4 Aces Presents here on Spreaker.com. Fridays, we got Raporia Presents, or Raporia Presents, 2 p.m., 4 p.m. Pacific. All these are Pacific Standard Times. Now versus then Deuce from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. That is going to be a monthly show. We also have Revolving Door Fridays with K Double's classroom, or Double K's classroom. Also splitting it up with Planet of Cole. Those shows are from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Saturday we got WTF from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. And also on Saturday we have the Troll Gazer Gaming Project featuring James Brower from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. And on Sunday, we cap off the week with West Coast Bias from 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. And remember, all these are Pacific Standard Time. So check all these shows out and holla at your boy. Y'all take it easy.
All right, Suave. It's time to give him a different take on life with Mr. Suave's take.
All right. Well, O'Malley touched on the three-point contest. She's absolutely right on that. So I'm going to switch gears and go dunk contest. And I'm just going to say it. Aaron Gordon got robbed. Highway fucking robbery. Now, I like Levine. He did his thing last year. He pretty much, what was the show last year. And he comes in defending champ. But I'll be damned if Aaron Gordon did not deliver a couple of pure knockout blows. Now, I understand. Levine was jumping from the free throw line, and he did the between the legs from the free throw line. But I'm sorry. The creativity that Gordon used in his dunks throughout the evening should have won him the dunk contest running away, quite frankly. So instead of just sitting here and badgering the judges and telling them how bad, they were doing, I want to give some pointers to what the NBA should do moving forward with the dunk contest, because the dunk contest had gotten so bad that there were talk throughout the entire broadcast that the three-point contest should be the headline event, the event that finishes up All-Star Weekend. And before this dunk contest happened, I totally agreed with him. I mean, let's be honest. For as long as Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson want to do the three-point contest, then it can be relegated back down to second fiddle once those two guys say they're done doing it. But the dunk contest had hadn't really, last year was good. You give Levine credit. It was probably the best it had been since Vince Carter tore the roof off in Oakland, which was a while ago. But this year between Gordon and Levine was really, an extra special event. And I think it was marred by the fact that they still use the archaic 1 through 10 for voting for dunks. Now, there's a reason why even the Olympics, the epitome of all sport, the Olympics, you can say, basketball champion is the world champion. You can say, any other sport is the world champion, but the Olympics is the real world champion. And there's a reason they do, fractions, decimals, 9.5, 8.9. There's a reason, because 1 through 10 doesn't give you enough leeway to show who actually truly excelled. So it's time for the NBA to, institute one of two options. Either they go, you can do the 8.1 all the way, use all the decimal points through all the digits from 0 to 10, or you give each voter 0 through 20. So that way you, instead of having, 0 to 50, you go to 0 to 100, or institute an Olympic style, because last night I think it's clear that Gordon won with his variety of dunks. Levine had a lot of similarities to the dunks he did, all from the free throw line. One was a tomahawk. Yeah, that was nice. He was stepping on the line just like Jordan got up and tomahawked it. That was nice. Then he did it again, and it was through the legs and into the basket, with some ferocity. That was nice. But the dunks that will never be forgotten, and I mean never be forgotten, was Aaron Gordon. He put on a show last night that was just absolutely stunning. The dunk where he had the mascot spinning on the little, the little mini Segway thing, whatever the hell they call those. He had him spinning, timed his jump just right to take the ball out of his hands, put his hand behind his head like Karl Malone, and dunk the basketball with a kind of 360 motion. That was ferocious. I thought that was probably going to be the best dunk of the night. But then he follows that up by jumping over the mascot, taking the ball from the mascot, going underneath both legs, basically sitting in midair like he jumped while sitting down, and dunks it reverse. And then on top of that, the last one, he didn't use the mascot. He faked the tomahawk, brings it back down between his legs, all in reverse, and then slams it down with both hands. I thought that dunk was way better than the free throw line dunk. 1,000 times better than the dunk that Levine had done. Yet Levine is the champion. And Levine, to his credit, he went up there and he told them, hey, there's really two winners tonight because honestly what happened yesterday had never really happened in the history of the dunk contest. To continue to have to keep dunking because both guys are on such a level and on such a run that they're just knocking out 50s. But then for Gordon to get that 47 to allow Levine to win it with another 50, that was brutal. So it's time for the NBA to adjust how they allow the judges to score every dunk. There has to be the point. It's got to be super fantastical to get a 10. You can make somebody a 9.9. I mean, look at the Olympics. The reason 10s don't often come out is because you've seen a lot of the same stuff regurgitated throughout the years of whatever sport you're grading, or scoring. So it's time for the NBA to step its game up to where now you can get the 9.1s. That was good. It was pretty awesome, but it wasn't fantastical. So there's that leeway, and we can have some better judging rather than the 0 through 10. So that's pretty much my piece. Aaron Gordon, you got robbed. I understand the NBA only had one trophy, so there was no way they were going to make co-champions. There was no way they were going to allow both of you guys to hold up that trophy. The NBA needs to expand the rules. Gordon, you got robbed. That's been my piece.
All right, another great set of opinion pieces by O'Malley and Suave there. Guys, just want to tell you to go on ahead and keep listening in to the 4 Aces Presents Radio Network. We got some shows coming up from now versus then this week. We also have Double K's Classroom this Friday on Revolving Door Fridays, Raw Impact Unleashed on Thursday, and we also have West Coast Bias again next Sunday. And starting not this coming up Saturday the 20th, but next Saturday the Saturday after that, the 27th, we will start a new show about gaming, PC and console gaming called the Troll Gazer Gaming Project with James B. So be sure to listen in for that. Saturday at 5 o'clock he goes on live. So that's Saturday the 27th. All right, guys, now back to what we were talking about here. There was a couple of things I wanted to bring up, and this is going to kind of shift the conversation in a different direction. We can always bring it back to basketball to close out the show. But we're going to talk a little football.
Are we going to talk about how atrocious our predictions were?
Normally we're pretty spot on here at West Coast Bias. We know our shit. We do our research. But this time, the Denver Broncos went on ahead and made a bunch of liars of us. And I hate you, Peyton Manning, because like the meme said that I saw, one of my favorite ones, the kid that does absolutely nothing on the group project and still gets the A for it.
I hate that kid.
So
I really hate that kid.
And so Peyton got his second ring. Now everybody can say that he's better than Eli or whatever because he's tied with Eli in Super Bowl rings. But the Denver Broncos ended up getting the win. I hate to say this, but on Valentine's Day, I have to touch on this. It hurt a little bit more that the Broncos won because the Broncos are my ex's team. And, whenever your ex likes a team, you always want that team to lose, and you definitely don't want them winning Super Bowls. So it kind of hurts when you see that kind of double time. But congratulations to the Broncos. And, well, we know about all the fallout, guys. Your thoughts on the Super Bowl and kind of the fallout in the week since?
Well, you know what? It was a purely defensive game.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. I mean, there's no getting around that. I do have to say, I did have one prediction that was right, and it wasn't from last week, but it was from the week before when we were talking about, who, if anybody, was going to stop, Carolina. Yeah. And I said Von Miller. So, I mean, hey, at least I got that part right.
That you were dead on about.
I mean, other than that, our predictions were atrocious. Yeah. I didn't see what happened being what happened. I thought that there was going to be a lot more points on the board. I mean, even from both teams.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that was one of the lower scoring Super Bowls.
In a long
really.
Time.
Yep. Yeah. And, I mean, I know that a lot of people weren't happy about it. It's like, because a lot of people were like, oh, it was a boring game. And it's like, okay, well, it's just like people who aren't, like, fans of, like, real fans of the sport of baseball.
Yeah.
Watching a pitcher's duel.
Yeah.
Okay, unless you're a fan and somebody who really, appreciates the game, I can understand, especially if it's on TV, how you might find that boring. Mm-hmm. I think it's fascinating because, it's amazing if you understand the skill involved that it takes to do that. But I get it. It's not out there. It's not exciting. It's not all of this to watch. So I can understand. So a lot of people said, oh, it was boring, because of that. But, we've all heard it before, time and time again. Offense wins games, or offense sells tickets, and defense wins championships. And Sunday's game was purely defensive. And that's why I'm glad that, they didn't give Peyton the MVP award just for the sake of giving Peyton the MVP award because, let's face it, if he doesn't retire after that, he's dumb.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to see that somebody deserving the defensive player won the award. And, I'm surprised. I don't think Cam was ready for all of what happened. I definitely don't think that Carolina's offensive line was ready for the wrath that Denver's defense brought down on them. But, the better defense won that day. And that's plain and simple. And, Denver went into that game having the best defense in the NFL. So, in some ways it really shouldn't have been as surprising. I was most surprised at how little of a score that game was. Really.
100%.
I expected there to be a lot more points on the board. I would have been less surprised if Denver had won. I'm surprised that Denver won, but I would have been less surprised if they had won. But there were still some significant points on the board. Right. That was, I think, for me, what I was most surprised at was the score. It wasn't necessarily, granted, we obviously all had Carolina and by a long shot, but that itself, yes, was a surprise, but the biggest shock for me was not who won the game. It was how few points there were on the board at the end of the game.
how hard both offenses struggled to move the ball in general was a key factor to allowing the Panthers to stay in the game and actually make it somewhat of a game towards the end before that final mistake, and then also what allowed Denver to be so dominant on such a light offensive performance. But Suave, any thoughts on or anything to add to the conversation about the Super Bowl or the media blowout thereafter?
Yeah. Well, I'll say the media stuff, the end of the game stuff for the next segment. But, when it comes to the game itself, I disagree to an extent. I don't think the best defense won. I think Denver's defense was blessed in where they got their turnovers versus where Carolina got their turnovers. I think both defenses played even, to be quite honest. I think that what it really came down to was the defenses and Carolina's inability to change their game plan throughout the game. A lot of runs up the middle for little to no gain. Very few Cam Newton runs, which is one of the things that, we said leading up to it was one of the things that Denver was going to have trouble covering, So I think that Carolina went against their game plan because you never game plan for a quarterback like Cam Newton to throw a football 41 times in a game and expect to win. So I think that, their lack of being able to establish the run, the lack of using Cam Newton as a runner, really went against the way Carolina had won all year. I think that the lack of receiving help for Newton was gargantuan for the first time, or really the second time all season, because it really kind of came up in the Atlanta comeback in the only game that they lost in the regular season. They couldn't stop Julio Jones and Matt Ryan, but at the same time, they didn't have anybody on offense who could step up in the wide receiving core. And then the one guy who did step up during the Super Bowl, he ended up getting a concussion and couldn't play after making a spectacular catch when it looked like he was going to become the go-to guy. So, there were a lot of factors other than great defense played on both sides that went into Carolina, not winning this game. And you can say that maybe it was inexperience because, Chan Gailey drew up a beautiful game plan, but at the same time, your job becomes a lot easier when the other team neglects to change their game plan when they see that you've done something that's going to be stumping them throughout the game. So, my hat's off to them. I was not expecting that, but at the same time, I think that, Carolina showed the rawness of their coaching. I think, in all honesty, even with throwing 41 passes, Cam Newton had a pretty good game. He almost threw for 300 yards with hardly any receivers other than Greg Olsen, who was targeted a bunch of times. The one guy that he did have got injured. So, one or more of those passes get completed because he did have a handful of drops on his hands, too. He throws for over 300 yards. And while the best defense they have gotten the breaks to win, Cam Newton still had a pretty good game. So this game was definitely up for grabs. You hear a lot of pundits, at halftime when the Denver got the lead, you just never felt like the Panthers were going to come back. I didn't feel that way. I felt like if they had ever changed the strategy, that they were going to have a shot to put up some points. So you tip your hat to Denver. They are now, in my estimation, tied with the Oakland Raiders in most Super Bowls in the division. And that's kind of the really thing that hurts me the most, because now I've got to hear Denver fans. That was one of the things, all these years of losing, it didn't really even matter as a Raiders fan because we still had the most titles. And now Denver's tied us. But thankfully, Peyton Manning should be retiring. And even though he really didn't have a huge hand in helping to win this game, it's going to be on Osweiler to see if he can be the man going forward. And he hasn't shown me that he has the ability to be a Super Bowl winning quarterback, So I think that, with them having tied the Raiders still have an opportunity with the team they're building to one-up them here in the near future. So, you tip your hat to the Broncos. They got the breaks where they needed to get the breaks, including the catch that wasn't a catch. And that's another thing that I might bring up on my next segment on next show is the NFL needs to, revert back in time to what a catch used to be. Because so far they've screwed the Dallas Cowboys out of the catch. They've screwed Carolina in the Super Bowl on a catch that wasn't a catch. I mean, you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of Antonio Freeman for the Green Bay Packers on Monday Night Football, where he bobbled the ball rolled all across his body, up over his leg, touched the other defender, came back to Antonio Freeman. Antonio Freeman got up because he hadn't been touched while in possession of the football and ran for a touchdown. That was a catch. Well, the same exact thing just happened in the Super Bowl. The receiver had his hand under the football. He goes down. The ball never touches the ground, which is the epitome of when a catch is not a catch. So I don't understand what the refs saw. And to be honest, the biggest glowing thing that I heard the entire time was Kerry, the referee who was doing the broadcast. He was notorious for doing bad calls. But even he couldn't say that was not a catch. Even he was like, oh, that was a catch. If I was in that booth, I'd tell him that was a catch. And he was one of the worst officials of all time. And even he saw it. So, I mean, the NFL's got to fix that. They got to, they made it too difficult for the refs. To nitpick every little minutia of a catch. It needs to kind of revert back to what it was.
For sure. Very, very well said. Now, I'm going to kind of ask you guys to touch on two more things real quick. And Suave, will start off with you. Two more controversies, and I know you guys know which ones I'm about to bring up that stemmed out of the Super Bowl. One was the halftime show, which I actually rather enjoyed, and the other being Cam Newton walking out of the press conference. Suave, kick us off with your thoughts on basically what were the two biggest after stories to come out of the Super Bowl.
Okay. Well, I'm going to do quick and dirty on the halftime show because I want to spend most of my time on the other aspect. So, first off, you have Beyonce. She had all the dancers kind of geared up in a Black Panthers motif. Because let's be honest, since they moved the Super Bowl date, it used to be on my dad's birthday on January 31st, but now it's in freaking early February, so now it's Black History Month. So, of course, she has her dancers done up Black Panther style. She's wearing some bandoliers. I mean, they didn't look like full-on bandoliers. They weren't actual bullets, but they looked like them. Or maybe they were supposed to be representative of it. So she was wearing like a double bandolier thing. But to be honest, that they all raised the fist. I didn't have a problem with it. All of a sudden, America's going crazy, and you got people like politicians jumping in saying that wasn't the platform to do it. But then, you turn around and you see all these memes on the internet of all these other, rock stars wearing the Southern Cross flag, and wearing shirts with the flag on it. And, Kid Rock, I love Kid Rock, but he, represents his Southern heritage with the flag up. And I know he's not doing it in a racist way because a lot of, I'm just going to say it, a lot of black folks like Kid Rock. The dude has skill, you feel me? He sometimes does some rock, sometimes does some rap. But, I didn't really have a problem with that. But let's segue into the next part. Cam Newton went out and shook Peyton Manning's hand, gave him flash that smile we hadn't seen all game because he was losing. Then the NFL, a lot of people were saying this is how they've done it for years. Well, if that's the case, having both teams do their interviews at the end of the game at the same time in the same section, that needs to change. Let the winning team celebrate, have the losers come in and do all their stuff first without having to hear, because I believe his name's CJ Wilson or CJ Harris was right behind Cam Newton, and Cam Newton could hear him saying how he just defeated his team, what they did to Cam Newton. And I'm sorry, nobody wants to hear that. I mean, hell, I don't want to hear how you beat me when I'm playing a video game. I for damn sure don't want to hear you saying that, while you just beating me in the biggest game of my life. So I have no problem with what Cam Newton did and walking out of the press conference. I think it was overblown. I think the media took a hold of it because that's what the media does. I think that Bill Romanowski was wrong because, he had this thing. He said that's not, he's showing some immaturity, and he called him a boy. I think he stepped over the line because all you need to do is go to the end of the game when Cam Newton shook Peyton Manning's hand, flashed him a smile, and showed him some love. Because need I remind everybody that in 2011, when Peyton Manning was getting his hiney kicked and having a terrible game in the Super Bowl against New Orleans Saints, he pulled a Randy Moss and walked off the field before the game was over. The game was ending, and Peyton Manning isn't staying to shake hands with Drew Brees. He's leaving the fucking game. So people need to understand and recognize that what Cam did in the news conference is not a big deal.
All right. And O'Malley, your thoughts?
Okay, well, first, just to touch on the backlash that has gone on with the whole halftime show. Okay, agreed. It's taking place in the middle of, first week of Black History Month. Okay. I think that, honestly, what a lot of people were more surprised about was that she kind of veered off and did something that artists don't usually do, which is she performed a song that she had released 2 days prior. Usually performers in the Super Bowl, or even when you're watching an awards show, they're performing a song that you have heard before, that that you understand, what have you. Granted, the song went with the message, so I think that in some ways that's why she performed it. I think that there's been some critics of it who have actually been misunderstood in some of the things that they were saying. Not that they didn't agree with her performance, or not that they were against her performance, but questioning the point of whether doing things like that in the end is more divisive than it is like trying to get a point across. I don't know how I feel about that. She's an artist. She's allowed. I mean, that's their platform to, make a statement. So, go on, do what you got to do. I have to say, I'm not a huge Beyonce fan to begin with. So, anything that I would have to say about the performance really has nothing to do about the message. It's just, I'm not a huge Beyonce fan to begin with. I personally, Bruno Mars's part was my favorite part. Loved the homage to Run DMC. That was pretty freaking awesome. I preferred his performance much better. I liked when the two of them came together, and it was almost like a dance/rap battle going on between the two of them. That was cool. But as far as everybody and everything that they want to say about it all, whatever, just F over it. Who freaking cares? She's a person. She's allowed to state her opinion, okay? Will she probably lose some fans over it? Maybe. Does she really care? Probably freaking not. So, it is what it is. I can understand the point that some people were trying to make about the whole Black Panther movement and some things about that might not have been the best movement to have picked. But, it's history. It's part of the heritage, the culture, the whatever. And, if that's what she wants to go out there and do, just like every movement that there has ever been throughout history trying to, move for social change, not all of the people in the movement have done good things, but not all of them have done bad things either. So, as an organization, it wasn't an entire, I think that they got a bad rap, a lot of it because of what was going on at the time. You hear about, I think it is sad that a lot of what you read about, if you read anything about it in history classes coming up, it's about, they got arrested for doing this and violence that, and they did this and their protests and violence and what have you. But you have to look at the time in which that happened and whether or not, first of all, if the roles had been reversed, the people would, they were being arrested just for the sake of being arrested. And I think that some of that was the whole point of the message, is because unfortunately, that is still going on. I mean, all you have to do is look at the justice system to see that, unfortunately, as far as that goes, not a lot has freaking changed. So, I mean, more power to her. I personally, it wasn't my favorite part of the show, and none of it had to do with what they were wearing or what she was saying or any of that. It just had to do with, I mean, a big part of it, like I said, was, you know, she went out there and did a song that had only been released 2 days prior to it. It's not like Bruno Mars and Coldplay, who went out there and did songs that were very popular. So people could just get into it to begin with. No. You know, but I think that they incorporated her and what she had to say and all of it. I think they incorporated it in a manner that, even though you maybe hadn't heard the song before, the way they incorporated her segment, I think made it all cohesive. I think that there has been entirely too much talk about, I mean, honestly, I've heard more about this stupid halftime show than I have about the actual game. That's freaking ridiculous. It was a halftime show. Yeah. Get over it. You know? Okay, and Cam, as far as Cam goes, people, he's a human being. Okay? He's allowed to be disappointed. He's allowed to have a hard time, you know. I mean, when these guys get forced into these interviews, they've barely even had a minute to digest what just happened, you know. And knowing Cam, I think that a lot of what was going through his head was turnovers and maybe what he did wrong or what he could have done better. And you know, I agree with what Suave was saying about, you know, like having to hear what was going on in the background. I mean, come on, that's like adding insult to injury. You know, it's not like, yes, okay, he walked off, but it's not like the bullshit that Kaepernick pulled after, you know, not this past season, but like after the game where the Raiders beat the Niners and how he acted during the press conference. Now, granted, I'm sure that in some ways, and I mean, how he had acted several games prior, I'd say part of it was he's not used to, I mean, let's be honest, the media, even when they haven't been doing very well, has still been generally favorable to the Niners. Whereas the Raiders could be doing horrible in the sports media in the Bay Area, has often still not given them credit where credit is due. So, but I mean, he definitely in those interviews acted like a petulant child, you know. But with Cam, I mean, come on, he just lost the biggest game of his entire career. And you know, all that was going on in his brain was replaying every freaking second, every little thing that went wrong, what could have, you know, and the fact that, I mean, there really wasn't any time during that game that Carolina couldn't have come back. You know, it wasn't like, because of how low of a score it was, I mean, it wasn't like Denver had them out of the water and there was no coming back.
Yeah, no, they weren't out of it until about the 4-minute mark.
That hurts. I've said it before. I'd rather lose by 100 points than lose by 1.
Mm-hmm. And
you know, because I mean, and that hurts. And so I think that people just need to. I think that, you know, I think that we all forget sometimes that these players are still human. And they have feelings, and they're allowed to have feelings. And it's like, you know, and I agree exactly with what Suave said. In the moment when it was absolutely necessary, he showed the sportsmanship. You know, when he flashed that smile and shook his hand and gave Peyton a congratulations. Okay, now, if he had just been like, peace out, fuck you, whatever at that point, okay, maybe it was maybe a different story. But we're talking about a post-game interview where, first of all, I think the media was rather hostile towards him. And secondly, you know, he's got all this shit going on in the background, like, thanks for fucking making it worse. It's not like it's not like just going home and listening to someone's interview, like, on your couch and being able to react like any normal person in that situation would, you know? And being in your own space to be able to react with what they were saying. He was right there, you know? And, yeah, I think that needs to change because that's messed up. And I think that the backlash that he's received from some of it, I mean, when I originally saw the interview, I was surprised with him. I was surprised that he walked off like that. But honestly, in analyzing it and thinking about it and, like, having seen it, like, 100 freaking times since then, I totally understand it. And let's face it, he's still a kid. You know, he's still he's what, 25? Something like that. So, I mean, seriously.
And 100% I agree with both of you guys, but I'm going to kind of put out there something that was said to me that I do truly understand, that was kind of broke down for me, and I know you guys will too, that a lot of people aren't necessarily recognizing, and especially a particular friend of mine who I got into multiple arguments with about this situation on Facebook because of the fact that I know him very well, and I know he wouldn't even want to have a 5-minute conversation with somebody after losing a game of Madden, yet alone sit there and listen to somebody talk about how they just whipped his ass on a football field. So he kind of needs to get his priorities straight, but I won't go there or mention his name.
Yeah, but at least for Madden, you can take off your headset and throw your remote control down and you're done.
There
you know,
go.
I mean, shit.
But what I basically what was said to me that kind of made me take a step back is somebody brought up to me, if you've watched Cam since his Auburn days, Cam has never lost well. Cam has never been a gracious loser. He's always kind of had a little attitude about him and a pouty little attitude about him whenever he wins, whenever he loses, and he's always had that big smile whenever he wins. So the person that was talking to me was basically coming at me from the angle of they don't understand why there's such a big deal about it when this has been the pattern that Cam Newton has shown since being in the NFL. So it's not like this is oh my God, Cam Newton's always been such a great guy when it comes to losses. He's always stayed there for all of his interviews and answered all of his questions. Yeah, he always has, but he's never been a gracious loser. If you watch his
Well, no, I totally understand that because I was living in the area during his Auburn days.
Yeah.
So I know exactly how. I mean, I have literally seen the kid play. So I know what a gracious loser or loser he isn't. I do think that he's actually grown a lot since his Auburn days. I really do. He doesn't react as bad as he did but I mean, he's got some years on him. He's got some experience on him. He's had some veteran players around him. But you're right. I mean, seriously, shouldn't have been really, that big of a surprise.
All right, guys. So we're going to have to cut it off there, but I won't give my thoughts on the Beyonce halftime thing because if y'all want to hear that, tune in to Double K's Classroom this Friday when it posts and is ready to listen to at 8:00 on Friday because in my lesson of the day and most of the episode, I'm going to have quite a bit to say about it. So other than that, guys, it's been a great show.
Means I have to listen to you again?
Only if you want to. No.
I'm just kidding. I am totally kidding. Absolutely kidding. But yeah, no, I'm very interested in what you have to say about it. Because I think that people really made way more out of it than it really needed to have been. And if she wanted to choose that platform to. It's no different than if she had gone out on the Grammys on Monday and done the same performance. To me.
Mm-hmm. And that, yeah, like I said, I'll touch on a lot of that when I record that show but other than that, guys, next week we're gonna kick off the show with, and I kind of want to talk to you guys. I don't know if you guys saw it. I tried to tag in it. I don't know how well it worked on the thing, but there was a thing talking about predicting the next 50 Super Bowls. And yeah, there's a couple of points the talking points that I'll hit you guys with next week that kind of made me laugh, including the biggest laugh of them all, the San Francisco 49ers winning the Super Bowl next year under Chip Kelly. So, hey, you know what? Weirder things have happened. So, but on that note, we'll go ahead and close it out.
Dude, who was smoking fucking crack when they made that prediction?
Are y'all?
Because I mean, weren't they supposed to be in Super Bowl 50 in Levi's Stadium?
Hey, if Jim Harbaugh had stayed for another year, there was a possibility, damn it, because they wouldn't have lost so many players. But we won't get into that. Those are all hypotheticals. It didn't happen. They were a crappy team last year. I've learned to live with it.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Anyway, but yeah, guys, any last words for the people before we cut it off?
Last word.
Go Dubs. Haters keep on fucking hating.
There you go. That's what we have to say. So till next week, y'all, keep on listening in. Like I said, 4 Aces Presents, we got all kinds of shows coming up throughout the week. Got that new show debuting next week or week after next on Saturday. So till then, guys, peace.
Deuces.